My grandfather was a horse trader. My Pepe was an auctioneer, and my uncle and his son were well-known horse traders in my area growing up. I always had a horse or a pony growing up, and I was always able to go over to one of their places and ride horses and ponies and donkeys and mules there. What I'm going to share with you today are things that I learned from them about horses that bite, and what to do when they bite and how to prevent them from biting. My grandfather and my Pepe would never allow us to feed a horse over the top of the fence. We were always told to feed the horse through the fence like I'm doing here. If you allow a horse to take treats from you over the top of the fence, he's putting his head up high and he's putting it into your space. If you're reaching in through the fence, his head is down low because it has to be low to get the treat, and you're reaching into his space, he's not reaching into yours. If a horse reaches out over the top of the fence, he has a lot of movement should he decide to become aggressive. He can reach out, he can bite you, and he can pull back and use the fence as protection against you. Where if you're reaching through the fence, you're actually using the fence as protection against the horse should it become aggressive. Thank you. That was a very good boy. That was a very good boy. He got my fingers in his mouth and he let go immediately and backed up. This is not a food aggressive horse, but if you do this process with every horse, then when you run into a food aggressive horse, you won't have a problem. What just happened brings up another point. You'll see a lot of times people, when they're feeding a horse, they put their hand out like this, and I had my fingers slightly curled, and that's how I got them in his mouth. I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I was talking to you. It really irritates me when people come over and they'll see the snack bag or my treat bag laying on the table, and they reach in and they just grab a handful of treats and reach over the top of the fence and give them to my horse. I think it's very important that if you're visiting someone, especially someone that you don't know very well, that you first ask permission to feed their horse and to ask if there is a certain procedure for feeding that horse. I always ask even my closest friends if it's okay to give their horse a treat, because I don't know how many treats it's been given that day. Maybe it's already been given a couple carrots, and here I want to give it another one. So it's always important that you ask. In this next process that you see done with this horse, notice that the horse is very trusting of what's going on. He's beyond just tolerating what's being done. He trusts what's being done. To the point where he'll put his head down and grab another bite of hay and sit there and chew on it. He's totally unfazed by it because he trusts what I'm doing. It's not that he's been forced to tolerate what's being done to him. And the difference between the two is training that's being done to a horse and training that's being done with a horse. Trust training is done with a horse. You consider the horse's expression, its feelings, its tolerance levels, and so forth, where training that's done to a horse is, I'm the boss, you do it when I say you do it and how I say you do it. I tend to find people that do the latter as being people that are actually somewhat afraid of horses. They don't understand unpredictable movements of a horse, so they need the horse to do exactly what they say when they say it and nothing else. And to those type of people, I encourage you to actually play with a horse. I don't mean play lessons like you see on natural horsemanship, training videos and so forth, and demos. I mean actually play with your horse, because in doing that, you'll start to understand what the different movements mean, what it means when he throws his head up, or what it means when he turns around. A horse that bites, you should make sure that it's not head shy. You should be able to take an item and tap its ears, its face. You should be able to go all around it without it being alarmed about it. You can't be this aggressive with an item around it without the horse becoming alarmed, then you need to work on it being head shy. But you should be able to flap stuff around its head and jump around and be able to do things without the horse becoming excited. You should be able to do that. You beautiful girl, huh? What do you want? You want an egg? You can have an egg. That's a good one. I'm going to go over food aggression in a separate video because it'll take at least 10 minutes that YouTube allows to go over food aggression and how to test for that and so forth. But I hope you noticed that this horse just asked me to have a treat, and I could have said yes or no. I said yes and I let him have it, and he put his head right back down and he ate his hay. Just now, I motioned for him to put his head back and eat his hay, and he did so. This horse is not food aggressive, although a person who told me they were a horse trainer and also witnessed my horse blowing up at the shot visit said that his problem is that he's food aggressive. I think you need to be very careful when working with a horse to not bring your prejudices into it. Many times people who are prejudiced against something like giving food rewards during training also see a problem, and suddenly the two cause each other. You have to be very careful not to do that. Chaps are rolling in the mud today. The mud, the leaves, and he's been a little piggy. You heard that, huh? You've been a little piggy. When I was growing up, we were never allowed to hit a horse for biting unless it was to prevent a second strike. The reason being was that we were supposed to be responsible enough to recognize before that point that the intent was there to bite. Actually, we were expected to realize before the intent that there was a problem and stop and reevaluate way back in the process before it ever got to that point. Because again, a horse will always warn you. There will always be signs that the horse is going to become aggressive before the horse is aggressive. And there are stages of aggression before it reaches the point of biting. I know at least one person is saying, well, what about that horse that reaches its head out over the stall and bites at people when you pass by? Even that horse warns you. I suggest that if you know a horse like this to walk back down the aisle and start as far back as you can and walk back up, and you'll notice that even the horses on either side will pick up on the subtle signals that that horse is giving, and those horses will give you a warning that walking past that stall might be dangerous. Good boy. Nice job, Booby. Nice job.